Okay, I think we're back. Yeah? So the student playtesting videos, Ubich Vero, is it's gonna be in your inbox somewhere. So when Project 3 began, a spreadsheet dedicated to your team was shared with you. It's a little bit concerning that you. I assume you've been watching them in the meantime, but you're gonna have to look through your. You're gonna have to look through your inbox to find that. Okay. One of your teammates can probably send you a link really quickly as well. Yeah, you should have. I think you should have about 5 hours of playtesting footage from your from your peers to go through. Like that's, I wish I had that resource when I was taking this class. Like what we did was it was an in-person playtest. So and we only did a couple of them. So you really had to be taking a lot of notes if you wanted to know what you needed to fix. But now you can just hit double speed on the gear. You can see exactly what everyone's doing. You can split it up among your team members and then aggregate your notes at the end to get through it fast. Divide and conquer. Yep. Okay, we've got 2 minutes left in break, so be sure to use the restroom. Grab yourself some tea. What's everyone drinking? I got sweetened black tea in a can called Zevia. Yeah, it's called Zevia. So here's the thing. Our in-person playtests in previous semesters were really fun because there's a lot of energy. There were also plenty of them because we do it every week, but they're not recorded. They aren't recorded, and so they're harder to go back and really study and look at as a team later. So I think that, I don't know, I kind of want to keep them remote playtests, but the energy of doing an in-person playtest is just so incredible that I feel like there's a lot of value to going back to in-person as well. I'm not sure what we're going to choose, but there might be a way we can try and get both. But I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do there. Both options are pretty good. I don't know what we're going to do. We'll figure that out over the summer, I think. You could do a hybrid, like having people do in person and only doing one group remote. Yeah, that could be something we do, where we alternate which groups are remote each week and which groups are in person. It might be a bit confusing though. We gotta keep the course relatively simple because the complexity just builds every semester, and eventually it degrades the quality of the student experience. So we gotta be careful, but it's a good idea. Yeah, that's right. Jelly Kid says the in-person playtests have an additional value, which is you can actually interact with the player if you want to. Yeah, 381 isn't going to be offered for quite some time. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Black tea, I'm having some coffee, orange juice, and grapefruit juice. We're so healthy. This is really good. Yeah, 381 is extremely difficult, and it's also a course that's extremely difficult to teach. I have briefly in the back of my mind thought about trying to teach it myself, simply because there are plenty of design patterns in use in EECS 494 that could give me a head start in teaching something like 381, but not enough of my current professional workload is in C++. That might change when I get into Unreal Engine more, but I don't think it'd be a good fit right now. You could record at the same time, you could do hybrid, blah, 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 blah. After P2, I thought I found something I was good at, but now I'm thinking that was a flute. Don't be so hard on yourself, Alk Z Umich. It is, don't be so hard on yourself. It is, oh no, that is Allura Vumich. Don't be so hard on yourself. Making games is super tough. You will find famous game designers that go to a game jam and kind of you know, lay an egg or two, just because even the most experienced and talented people in the world, when it comes to making games, they still mess up on occasion. So, yeah, like the universe knows I've made, you know, a number of not so great games, even after my time in Electronic Arts. So, yeah, don't worry too much. The key is just, if you iterate long enough, you can usually get a project to the point where it's, at the very least, moderately engaging. If not much more special. So, yeah, don't worry, everyone. Don't panic too much. It's going to be okay. Just keep iterating, listen to feedback, make changes when you feel you need to. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get back into it. This music you've been listening to hopefully doesn't get us DMCA'd, but we are going to listen to, and we're gonna watch One Winged Angel. We're gonna watch the Supernova from Final Fantasy VII. Okay. Okay, so there you go, and I'd like to point out that after this attack, every single character is still alive. This is an attack that appears so devastating, it destroys most of the planets in our solar system, but it leaves our characters with 5% of their HP left. So anyway, but you can see how this kind of attack might sear some interesting astronomical facts into the mind of players who see it. So the idea that the sun will eventually grow and become a red giant and consume the planets, starting with Mercury, then Venus, then Earth, is an idea that a lot of people don't get exposed to until they hit high school. But if you played this game in middle school or elementary, then there's a good chance that you already are kind of aware of this topic. You might also have an order of the planets burned into your memory because you remember which planets died before Earth, right? When the sun started to expand. So you know planets like Saturn are outer planets, and then you know it goes Sun, Mercury, Venus, and then the Earth because you watched the sun devour these planets in order before they got to you, right? So anyway, it's just an interesting example of how games can use interesting kind of educational facts in a really, really powerful and memorable way. Okay, let's keep going. What about epidemic progression? Has anyone played a game called Plague Inc? I already kind of mentioned it earlier on in the lecture, but Plague Inc is a really, really cool game that not only managed to entertain the world and sell extremely well, but educate them as well.
Commencing Autopsy 3. Time, 2104. 27-year-old female infected with unknown pathogen. Blood analysis indicates virus. Provisional name is PAX-12. Deceased had traveled in China before returning home 2 weeks ago. That must have been pre-quarantine. Unknown if had contact with livestock, but I can definitely see evidence of insect bites. Deceased had reported coughing and sneezing with a high fever. I'm seeing a nasty rash, some abscesses around the abdominal cavity. Clear signs of immune suppression. Cause of death appears to be catastrophic organ failure. Findings match reports coming out of China. This is highly concerning. The deceased may still be infectious.
Okay, so I think you get it. This is a game that has a lot of kind of traditionally gamey elements to it. It has a tech tree, but this tech tree involves you as the virus kind of mutating and taking on new abilities, growing more severe, gaining new symptoms, gaining the ability to resist in certain temperatures and climates and environments. And actually, that's the exact kind of thing that pandemics do. You probably hear about in the news that there are variants of the COVID-19 what's the word? Yeah, the COVID-19 virus that is spreading, right? Variants that are appearing, and that is kind of reflected in this game in the form of a tech tree. The way that the virus spreads, right? It often starts out in a local area and then eventually gets to other countries. This is a game that did extremely well because it's very interesting and engaging. It has a lot of RTS/strategy/idle game elements to it. But it also is very, very based in reality and the ways that pandemics actually spread. And so as a result, it accomplished two things. It managed to itself spread far and wide. A lot of people play this game, and in doing so, it spread this knowledge that it carried, which is extremely, extremely cool. This team, I think actually, this team got a visit from the Queen. I think they're a UK studio that made this. They got a visit from the Queen. And they gave a talk at the American CDC, this is a really, really impactful game for those reasons. But anyway, okay, so Plague Inc. Yeah, it's a big deal. There's even a COVID-19 version of the game that sends all their proceeds to charity, which is really cool of them. So I have a final question for you, chat, and this is actually a question, and also a hard one. What do the following games have in common? Okay, I'm going to show you 4 games, and you have to tell me what they all have in common. The first game, Reader Rabbit, 2nd grade. Okay, cool little reading game. Math Blaster, ages 4 to 6. This game is really, really cool. Zoombinis, Logical Journey. And Resident Evil Remake. What do these 4 games have in common? Some of you may be feeling in your heart that one of these is not like the other, but I would like you to think about what all of these games have in common. What do all of these games accomplish? Tank controls? No, not quite. Puzzles and learning. Ah, that's interesting. Learning. Okay, what kind of learning? Resource controls. Interesting. You're very close, very close. Let me explain. You might have seen Resident Evil Remake and said, wow, that seems really strange. But if you look at these games individually, right, Reader Rabbit, this, despite being called Reader Rabbit, this is actually a math game. You can see that our rabbit friend here is holding the 1/2 sign right here. That's like teaching you fractions. So in a Reader Rabbit, you do math to save the day. In Math Blaster, you do math to save the day. In Resident Evil Remake, you do math, actually, so that you don't run out of ammo so that you can save the day, okay? Or in other words, all three of these games, if you really think about them, are very, very, very heavy with mathematics, okay? And they teach you a little bit about it, okay? So you might say, well, okay, this is a little bit far-fetched. Austin, this really isn't an educational game. But let me argue the other side, okay? Here is a screenshot from Resident Evil Remake. Here's what moment-to-moment gameplay looks like. You're Jill Valentine, and you've got zombies in this haunted mansion. And you need to figure out the mystery of this haunted mansion, then eventually escape and rescue your team members, okay? Now, if you look at this zombie and you play the game for a little bit, what you'll realize is that zombies require a typical amount of bullets to put down. So let's say that there's 8 bullets required to take down a single zombie, okay? Well, as soon as you have that number, then you start to get thinking, right? I've got 8 bullets I need for this zombie. Okay, well, how many do I have? You look at your inventory, and you can see right here that I have 15 bullets, okay? Which means that I can deal with this zombie if I want to. I can take them out. I can spend these 15 bullets, and you might ask yourself how many bullets I have left if I do that. I'll have 7 left, okay? Well, you look at your map, and you determine that I can go this way. I can take this zombie out and I can go this way, but actually there's one more zombie behind him because I've already been down this hallway. I've already seen, I remember what is down this hallway. There's another zombie, okay? Well, if it takes 8 bullets to take down a zombie and you have 15, you can take down the first zombie, but you can't take down the second. You're going to be 1 bullet short. That's not good, okay? So you then ask yourself, well, I have a lot of different ways that I could go here. I could go this way. Right? I could go down this hallway, which has no zombie that I can see. But you don't know if this route down this hallway is going to take you into a zombie or something even worse. Okay? So now you have an element of risk. Okay? You know that if you go this way, you're going to spend 8 bullets, and then you're going to run out of bullets on the second zombie, which means you're going to take damage. However, there's a safe room. There's a safe room in this direction. You already know that because you've been down this way, which means you could stock back up on bullets if you needed to, if you got to that safe room, okay? Now, you can only save in this game if you have an item called an ink ribbon, and every time you save, it consumes that item. So you say, okay, can I save? I've got 5 ink ribbons, so yes, I'm way ahead of the game. I can save without worrying too much, okay? But wait a second. If I go this direction, I won't be able to take down the last zombie, and I'm going to take some damage. What is my health at? Oh, I'm at fine. I'm at fine, so I can tank a couple hits. So I'll be reduced to caution if I go this route, but I will get to the safe room, which means I'll have access to more ammo and maybe any health items that I've stored so I can heal up. But anyway, do I want to go this way? Is it less risky than going this way and potentially running into a much worse situation? And so what you notice by thinking through all of this is just one moment, one encounter in this game. And there are numbers and probabilities and pathfinding everywhere here, okay? And if you're playing this as a really young kid, and maybe you haven't been doing a whole lot of mathematical operations in your head, you're not reasoning about money every day, right? Because your parents take care of that. You're not thinking too much about time. Your parents set your schedule and get you to where you need to be. If you're playing this game and you do not want to become zombie food, which you don't, then you need to start thinking about these kinds of things. You need to start thinking about, okay, how much bullets do I have? What resources do I have? Where do I want to go? Where have I already been? What are the likelihoods that I'm going to survive if I go this way versus this way around to the safe room? And I think there's a question of, you probably shouldn't be playing this if you're a little kid. But if you are, then there's a very good chance you're going to get some very visceral experience with math, with mathematical concepts. You might not even realize you're doing math. Right? Of course, if I have 8 bullets, if I have 15 bullets, and I spend them on a zombie, I won't have them for the next zombie, right? And I think that 8 bullets thing is actually a number I just came up with. I can't remember exactly how many bullets a zombie takes in this game. I also think it matters whether you're aiming for the head, which is riskier, versus the torso. But anyway, the question here is, if this game could be considered educational in its moment-to-moment gameplay, then what on earth does it even mean to be called an educational game? Can you think of... Actually, I want to hear this, chat. Can you think of any games that wouldn't ordinarily be considered educational, but nevertheless, you need to know some stuff? to clear that game. You need to know some serious math or be fast with it. You need to be able to read a ton and quickly to be able to clear that game. Can you think of any games that wouldn't normally be called educational, but you really think are? What do you think? What do you think, team? Most JRPGs, right? Absolutely. They usually have a ton of text in them. And often your objectives and advice is given to you via that text, interaction with NPCs. And so you really need to be able to read in order to get the most out of gameplay and progress. Any other ideas, team? I'm thinking about games like beat-em-ups like River City Ransom and Scott Pilgrim, where you go into shops and you have to spend the resources you collect to get upgrades. I think that describes a ton of games, actually. You're constantly getting currencies these days, which allow you to get upgrades. Okay, what is the best upgrade for the amount of currency you currently have? What's going to get you the most value there, right? Honestly, almost every game, Umich Viru says, almost every game. It might be easier to think about, okay, what games are out there that don't teach you something, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and put an axiom out here. From what I've seen, games are essentially always educating. The main difference between games is what they are trying to teach you. So in a game like Super Mario 3D World, which was a big focus in our guidance lecture, you got to see that there are level designs, right? Levels are designed very specifically to help teach players how to use mechanics, what the impacts of mechanics are. What are the surprising results of a level where the geometry changes every time you jump, okay? So in this particular instance, the game is trying to teach you about these panels, which is why it starts you on this lower level. This requires you to jump at least once before you can even reach the panels, which means you'll see what the panels do, because when you jump in this level, the panels flip to the other side. And they give you a nice practice area where if you mess this up and you fall, you won't be killed, right? So the game is trying to teach you, but maybe not so much math or reading. It's trying to teach you about how these flip panels work and what the consequences of it are. If you look at Metroid, which many of you made for your first project, this game goes to some pretty significant lengths to try and teach you about how certain power-ups work, like the Morph Ball. It was very explicitly designed so that they would trap you in this tiny room that's also very boring, so that you're not going to wander around forever wondering what to do. Eventually, you'll get frustrated enough that you'll press the down button and you will become a small ball, at which point you can roll out. As soon as you have gotten out of this area, the game designers know for a fact that you know how to use the Morph Ball, which means they can use it in any other puzzles later on in the game. All right. If you look at, here's another example of I can't remember, e-learning industry, of a company making a lot of money to basically make a board game that teaches employees the corporate policy. So you know how, like, when you get to an internship or you get to a job, you often have to do some online training, and it's usually very, very dry and boring. Well, there's a lot of money, as it turns out, in trying to make that process less boring and to better kind of imprint those lessons onto the brains of the employees doing this training. And so games are always trying to educate, and sometimes they're trying to educate in kind of ephemeral fantasy topics like a Morph Ball or a panel that flips whenever you leave the ground. And then sometimes they're trying to train you in really pragmatic and important corporate stuff. So there's just really no end to what games can try and teach you, but they are always trying to teaching. You might ask yourself, yeah, that level is a pain in the butt in multiplayer. So during the in-person versions of this course, I bring in my Wii U and we play it. We play it with 4 players, and it's usually a mess. We burn through our 30 lives. We usually finish the stage with like 2 left. It's very fun. But anyway, and I also have hats. I have a hat for Mario, a hat for Luigi. I have a crown for Princess Peach, and I have a Toad hat as well. So we give each student the hat of the person the character they're playing as. It's really fun. I miss it. Miss those in-person activities. Anyway, a question you might ask yourself is, is educational really a meaningful distinction? So here's an example of a game that came out And I don't think it was initially aimed at being educational, but wow, does it have impact in the education space. So Minecraft has an educational edition. Did you know this? And it is customized, and it gives a lot of tools to like high school and middle school and elementary school teachers to like help their students easily get into the virtual setting for their class. And it helps the teachers like moderate the classroom, to warp everyone, to do locations in the map. And the idea is that if we want to teach people about the Wild West, then why not build a Wild West town in Minecraft and then warp the students there to kind of walk through and see what it was like. So here's a little video I'm going to show you on the topic of how powerful this normally non-educational game can be in an educational context. Let's take a look.
Minecraft is a video game that has a lot to offer. At its core, it's very open-ended. If you want to have an adventure, you can have an adventure. If you want to build something, you can build something. If you want to talk to your friends, you can talk to your friends. If you want to kill monsters, you can kill monsters. So the game appeals to a lot of people. It makes a lot of sense to take a game that is already fun, that is proven to be enjoyable to kids, and try to find a way to bring it into the classroom.
So you go here, Minecraft EDU launcher. And that should be it.
Look how pale I am. Imagine how long this took Brandon to make. I know. Oh! He just drops you from all the way up there.
You know, my school, as well as many others, have been struggling with the issue of how to teach digital citizenship, which is internet ethics, online safety, privacy, research. I mean, it's everything. Because as our kids were getting into middle school and high school, we had a lot of, frankly, ugly incidents happen. And so, the school's administration, along with the computer department, decided we really need to start teaching these concepts earlier. We're going to treat the game world as part of the classroom. It is a classroom, it's just in the digital space. And almost every single kid finally kind of came around and and got it.
Go ahead and let's start off by getting in, following the instructions that are up onto the board. Okay, you are students. Pick your avatar.
Pixel Pushers, as a student project here at the ETC, is working with Minecraft EDU to develop a series of software features for their software. So our programmers have been working on a quiz block and a lesson review tool to include in the Minecraft EDU software, while we're also working on researching, how and what you can best teach with Minecraft. You can really teach a wide array of things that aren't immediately obvious.
The kids have to think it's fun, otherwise what's the point? There's plenty of educational games out there, and frankly, very, very few of them have ever been very satisfying for me. I never wanted to use them in my classroom because it smells like school.
Make sure you're using the right material. Make sure you're not using gravel for the parts that are in between the pillars there, because the gravel will fall. Let's check out group 2. Oh, nice. You finished, you're almost done with one of the hardest shapes. Good job.
In our research...
So I'd like you to imagine, did anyone in their childhood have classes that were this awesome? Anyone have this? I remember going to the computer lab, and I think the most fun I had was like a typing game that was really dry and boring to teach me how to type, but also... as soon as I finished with my lesson for the day, I got to go to coolmathgames.com, and that was the best. Did anyone? No one got to do this. I think this might be a pretty recent change, where more and more schools are using games like Minecraft, really high quality games, to teach people and keep them engaged. Imagine, it's almost like a dream come true, right? Like the holy grail of teaching is, I teach something in class, and then my students go home and they learn it extremely deeply because they want to, right? Not, we're dangling some points above their head to force them to do it. This is like the dream come true. It's very easy to imagine that some students play Minecraft at school and they like it and they learn a lot, and then they go home and they literally want to keep doing exactly that. That is the holy grail. We played Super Mario Bros. For Wii in my algebra class to learn the coordinate plane. Oh, that's really, really cool. That's really neat. This was like 6th grade, I think. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going. Here's something I'd like to get across to you in this lecture. As we just learned from this video, and the way that we see education kind of moving toward, is that it can be very, very, very hard to take an educational game, right? Focus on that first and add the fun to it later. The step of adding the fun is not nearly as easy as it sounds, as you've all discovered in your Project 3. It can be very, very, very difficult to come up with a fun design, particularly when that design was not really aimed at being engaging from the get-go. So this is the approach that many, many games, educational games, have taken in the past, which kind of explains their limited success. What we're seeing more often these days is that you start with a fun game like Minecraft, and you add the educational aspects. You customize it, you give control and power to teachers, you give expressiveness to the players, and you end up with a great educational game, and this tends to be the more successful route overall. So is one approach easier, more successful? It's got to be the bottom, okay? All right. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So I want to do one more task for you, and then we're going to play a little game, okay? Here are 2 game descriptions. Here are 2 log lines of the exact same game. And I want to ask you, which of these 2 do you think is way more interesting and likely to engage players? The first one is The Oregon Trail is a historical survival simulator set in the 1850s where players must plan carefully and think critically to survive a perilous, desperate journey across America's western frontier. Or Oregon Trail is a historical quiz game where players answer questions about 1850s American migration to score points. Which of these 2 do you think players would be more likely to go for and be engaged with, and maybe even take home and play again and again? In other words, which of these is more appealing, the left or the right, chat? We got Jelly Kid says left. Alkazi Umich says left. Tom W. Bush says left in all caps, so you know he's serious. Joe Dotson says right. I think we might be getting a little bit trolled there, but it's okay to have unique tastes. So what I'm getting at here is that the left description, if you look into it, it really focuses on the gameplay. It really focuses on giving the players interesting decisions, things to think about, and a little bit of pressure, right, to make everything meaningful. On the right, we just have like a quiz show. Okay, well, it doesn't even describe how players are meant to learn about this stuff. Chances are, if this were the version of the Oregon Trail that was made, you'd start the game, you'd get to a big menu, you'd be given like a textbook of terms and events, and you'd be expected to read through them, and then when the quiz part of the game starts, you'd be expected to just recall from memory. That's not really exciting, is it? You're not really put in the shoes of of people in this extremely challenging time, an interesting time. You're like a student on a quiz show, trying to answer questions that you don't know the answer to, right? So anyway, the Oregon Trail. It was created in 1971 by Don Rowich, who was a student elementary school instructor at the time. I think he was a grad student. And he was tasked with teaching a unit on manifest destiny, which was the 1840s to 60s era, where Americans who were mainly on the East Coast were trying to spread to the West Coast and to the Pacific Ocean. The country had recently gotten a hold of this land via several really unfortunate and sad wars and the Louisiana Purchase, and you only really own land if you're there. So they're trying to encourage people to go out with, I think, the Homestead Act. Anyway, Don Rowich had to teach this unit, and the school had a mainframe computer, but they didn't have textbooks. So I guess he looked at that and said, you know what, I'm going to create a program instead of a textbook to teach this unit. And he created the Oregon Trail in 2 weeks. It was the simulation game, and it was immediate, like, amazing hit. In fact, it was so popular, if you go and watch Don's GDC talk, it was so popular that other teachers were trying to find excuses to bring their students into his room where the computer and Oregon Trail resided. Anyway, if you want to learn more about all of this and about how games and education kind of intersect, Education 333 by Barry Fishman is a really, really cool course. I think Barry's teaching it. Maybe it's someone else now. Anyway, there is education and games are becoming more and more intertwined. If you find yourself working in the games industry, there's a very good chance you might be doing something with education. And at any rate, no matter what game you're making, you'll be trying to teach the players something. So, yeah, it's really big business. In Royal Oak, we've got this really cool company called Pixo VR that does simulation work and visualization work where like you can become a first responder. Like there's a chemical spill on the highway and you need to deal with that. So normally you have to read about that in a textbook or you have to watch a video of it. But with VR, we can actually place you in the environment because it's still going to be safe, right? Normally, we can't put you at the site of a chemical spill because, you know, that's dangerous. But in VR, we can put you at that location and we can show you the consequences of the tools you decide to use, how quick you decide to move. We can score you on certain things. We can drill you on certain things. And it really, really works out very well. And as a result, we've got these big companies that are growing by doing this kind of impactful work. So anyway, I would like to, oh gosh, I don't know. Okay, we're going to go through this fast, okay? We're going to play the Oregon Trail, and I'm going to take your votes, but we're going to have to do so really fast, okay? Because we don't have a ton of time. We might pick this up next time. But anyway, full screen, let's try it. Oh, I guess full screen doesn't want to work for us. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit here. Can we zoom in? Hello. There we go. Good. Okay, so the Oregon Trail, we're playing it. You may travel the trail. Let's do that. Okay? Okay, chat, are we going to be a banker from Boston, a carpenter from Ohio, or a farmer from Illinois? And this actually is really important because depending on who you were, making the trip from the East Coast to Oregon was harder, right? If you're a farmer, you might not have the same resources that a banker would have. We want to be a carpenter. Okay, so that's kind of the medium difficulty. What is the name of the wagon leader? What's the word? Who's going to be in our wagon train, everyone? Okay, so the first one is me, I guess. That's always the case. I've never gotten out of it. The second one is going to be monkey. Okay. Uh-oh, spelled it wrong. Who else is on our wagon train? Ish. Okay. Who else do we got? Jelly Kid. Okay. And a Reggie. All right, perfect. Yes, these names are correct. Okay, it's 1848 and our jumping off place is Independence, Missouri. You must decide which month to leave Independence. And this is actually important. We can ask for advice. You attend a public meeting held for folks with the California-Oregon fever. You're told if you leave too early, there won't be any grass for your oxen to eat. If you leave too late, you may not get to Oregon before winter comes. If you leave at just the right time, there will be green grass and the weather will still be cool. So what's the word, team? What's the word? When are we going to do it? Did I tell you I met Reggie B in a park in Dexter? They asked to take a photo, but we didn't want to take a photo. Anyway, very, very cool little puppy. Okay. May. All right, we're going to go in May. Jolly Kid convinced us to do May. So we still have a little bit of time until it gets too cold. Before leaving Independence, you should buy equipment and supplies. We have $800 to do it, but you don't have to spend it all now, okay? We're going to buy stuff at Matt's General Store. Okay, Matt says you're going to need a team of oxen, and you're going to need clothing. We're going to need food, ammunition, and we're going to need spare parts in case our wagon breaks down. So let's buy some oxen. I recommend at least 3 yoke, so let's get 3 yoke. Food. You'll need flour, sugar. My price is 20 cents a pound. I recommend at least 200 pounds of food. So let's buy 200 pounds. 3, clothing. Let's go ahead and buy some clothing. I recommend at least 2 sets of clothing per person. We have 5 people, so we're going to get 10 sets. Ammunition, we're going to buy some ammo. Let's go ahead and buy, how many boxes? Each box is 20 volts. Let's bring 5 boxes, okay? And spare parts. Spare parts, let's get some wagon wheels. How many wagon wheels? Let's get 3 wagon wheels. Let's get 3 wagon axles, and we're going to want 3 wagon tongues, okay? I have people saying that we're a little bit nervous about starving, so let's go ahead and buy a little bit more food than that. How many pounds of food do we want? Let's go for another 100 pounds. That should bring us up to about 300. And I think press spacebar to leave the store. Well then, you're ready to go. It's a long and difficult journey, but good luck. Okay. So we are taking off. We can look at our map from Independence. Here we are, right here. We're at Independence, where many people started their journey to the West Coast and Oregon. So I wonder where Oregon City is. Is it about where like Portland is now? Because we know Seattle's right there. We got Oregon City, and then we got San Francisco way down here on this little peninsula. So it's very interesting. We need to get from Independence, and we're headed to Fort Kearny, I think. Okay, so we can change our pace. Our pace is steady, but we have very little time left in the course. So we're going to change our pace to be grueling, okay, 3. And we're going to change our rations, since we have so much food, to be really filling. Change food rations to, oh, it's already filling. Okay, let's talk to some people. The traveler, Miles Hendricks, tells you, did you read the Missouri Republican today? Says some folks start out for Oregon without carrying spare parts, not even an extra wagon axle. Must think they grow on trees. Hope they're lucky enough to find an abandoned wagon they can pilfer. Okay, let's go. Okay, it is 102 miles to the Canvas River crossing. Wrong trail. We lost a day. Well, we got wrecked right away. We had a really bad start, I think. Okay, so we got 70 pounds of food. How do we eat that much food? How do we eat that much food? We're already down to 40 pounds? What happened? You are now at the Canvas River crossing. Would you like to look around? Yes. Okay. So we need to cross the river. Okay, let's continue. You must cross the river in order to continue. The river at this point is currently 627 feet across and 4.6 feet deep in the middle, so like up to our chest. Okay? So what's the word? We can attempt to ford the river, which means we're just going to go through it and hope we don't get in trouble. We can caulk the wagon, which means kind of seal it up and float it across. We can take a ferry across, or we can wait for conditions to improve. Oh, it's 200 pounds of food per person. Oh, I messed that up big time, didn't I? Uh-oh. Okay, so team, we need to get to the fort so we can buy more food. But, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do, team? What's the vote? 1, we're going to ford the river. 2, ford. Henry ford the river. We got, oh, it's dead even. Okay, the tiebreaker looks like it's, I'm going to vote, we're going to ford the river. See how it goes, okay? Let's do it. We arrived at this conclusion democratically. So, oh no! Oh, the river's too deep to ford. You lose 7 sets of clothing, 1 wax, and we lost all of our supplies. Now we're not only low on food. Okay, now we need to get to the Blue River crossing. Oh, and there's no food. There's no food. Uh-oh. Okay, hold on a second. We need to press enter to adjust our rations because we have 10 pounds of food left. Yes, look around. We need to change our rations, change our food rations. We're gonna like barely eat anything, and we're gonna move on the trail. Okay, 3.9 feet, so not as bad. Should we ford the river again, or should we float it? Let's float it. Let's float the river across. Let's float the wagon across, see how it goes. All right, it worked, good. We had no trouble floating the wagon across. Okay. 118 miles. Find wild fruit. So we got some food back when we found some fruit that we were able to use. Our health is reasonable, but not great. It's hot. Monkey has typhoid. That's not good. We're now at Fort Kearny. So we can buy some food, I think. Buy supplies. 9. We need some food. So 7. How many pounds? Like 1,000. Which number? Oh, we don't have enough money. Uh-oh. I don't want any oxen, thank you. How much food do we have? Can we buy 100 pounds? Yeah, we can keep buying food. Okay, that's good enough. Leave store. We can talk to people, get the word. Big Louie says the Platte River Valley forms a natural roadway from Fort Kearny to Fort Laramie. Travelers bound for California, Utah, and Oregon all take this road. Could be the easiest stretch of the whole trip. Should see antelope and plenty of buffalo. Right? So, right, this is super, super cool stuff. And I want you to recognize what's happening. When you're teaching this era of American history, ideally you wish that you could give the experiences and the challenges. You could put your players in the shoes of the people who lived in the time and had to deal with these really interesting challenges and learn from them. And with the Oregon Trail, we had a way to do that. Finally, we had a way for students to step into the shoes, if even in a basic way, of the travelers who were making this incredible journey. Suddenly, you had teams of students, like a wagon train, making decisions about what supplies are we going to buy, what choice are we going to take to get across the river, what direction are we going to go, should we move super fast or should we take it easier, should we change our pace, should we change our rations, what do we make of this advice we got from this person we just talked to? Suddenly, students weren't just reading about the challenges of the times, they were in those challenges. They were making decisions about how to address them, and you'd better believe, when the students died of dysentery, they never forgot what dysentery was ever again, okay? Being told you have died of dysentery, that is something you don't forget, okay? And so the magic of education and games can be seen here in this game, and it just was a massive hit. It was a fun game to play through. I encourage you to play through it yourself. It's not very long. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. And it was just super, super successful. It kind of led the way for games becoming a big, big factor in educating people on a variety of topics. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really, really fun to play these games with you and to ask you those fun questions. I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'll stick around for about 2 or 3 more minutes. You can ask any questions you have about the course or about this lecture content. And then we're going to come back at about 2:35. And we're going to do this all again, okay? Maybe we'll get a little bit further in the Oregon Trail if we move a little bit faster. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time. Take care. We'll turn our fun music back on. Mountain theme, rock theme, Shiver Star, Mounted Stream. Here we go. Get some Kirby. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Big Louie. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The Oregon Trail was initially created by a government institution called the MECC, the Michigan... No. Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium, I think. And yeah, I imagine a lot of taxpayer money went into funding that organization, and then suddenly it makes this humongous profit off of the Oregon Trail. Like, that's a pretty good surprise. Okay, it looks like no one has any questions. I'm going to step out for just a moment, and we'll be back at about 2:35 to do this again, okay? Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week. Hang in there. If P3 is a little bit rough right now, it always turns around. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.